everyone. Welcome to GMIHub Online. I am Cheryl Dewick, your host, and today we're going to be talking about music law and AI. Before I introduce our guest today, I'd like to say, first of all, if you are a first-time viewer of GMIHub Online, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to know more about what GMIHub is all about, please visit gmihub.ca, and from there you will actually see our vision, our activities, all the efforts we are doing to help educate, empower, and equip and give opportunities for music artists and people within the music scene to be more effective in sharing their music and the impact that that music has. If you want to follow us on social media, we are available on Facebook, on Instagram, on what was used to be TikTok, now X.com. We also have a WhatsApp channel where we connect with music artists. We'd love for you to join us on that. We are here on YouTube, and we'd love for you to click the like button and hit subscribe so that you are one of the first people to learn when we are going to be broadcasting a great conversation. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our guest, which is Paul Sanders. Paul Sanderson is an entertainment lawyer right here in Canada, right here in Ontario. He's been in the business for over 40 years, and he has advised music producers, artists, and other entities within the music industry on the legal aspects of what they need to do to stay integral and to stay in line with the legal system. So without further ado, I introduce to you Paul Sanderson.
Is AI training and use fair use? That's a U.S. concept. Or in Canada, fair dealing. And those get mismatched all the time, wrongly. They're very similar, but they're not identical. Canada has a fairness test for fair dealing. You have to fit within one of about half a dozen key sub areas. And then you have to make a six-prong legal test to figure out whether it was fair. Again, the cases haven't come through the courts yet to determine whether it is or it isn't. So far, the courts have been tending towards allowing AI to do what it does. Not generally if it's on pirated material. If they legally acquired it, that's another matter. And so far, that's where the courts have been differing. And you may have read about some of the large damage claims because Meta in particular, for example, i.e. Mark Zuckerberg and owned by Facebook, or the parent company of Facebook, indiscriminately took from whatever sources they wanted to, included pirated material. So they got their knuckles wrapped over that. But so in the U.S., fair dealing is a four-prong test, and it's set out right in the statute. Now, our fair dealing has to be for either private study, research, news reporting, parody, satire, or educational. So if you fit within one of those six prongs, you then look at whether the use is fair, and then look at these other six-prong legal tests that came out of a Supreme Court of Canada decision, and includes things like, could you have gotten the material elsewhere? How much did you take? Does it affect the original in the marketplace? So all these are being worked through now in the context of current AI legal developments. And again, there's nothing definitive yet. There's no legislation other than the EU, which I think is heartening. In the EU, there are some pretty serious penalties. And number two, the public is to be notified that AI has been used. So you're not just consuming something thinking that it's a real human or NI as opposed to AI. And so we'll see where that plays out. Right now, England, for example, is scrambling to, and there's been a lot of politicking and lobbying. Um, England doesn't want to be left behind. They want to embrace AI as quickly as they can because our global economies are going to be affected. And if you're shutting AI out and other countries are using it and encouraging it, then the economic shift is going to be felt very dramatically. But just a few months ago, some of the English musicians, well known ones, put out an album, I think it was a vinyl record, with nothing on it.
Mm.
And they went,
Wow.
see, this is what's going to happen with AI because we'll have no incentive to create. You're going to get silence. And yeah,
Wow.
it's always been this balancing act, especially under the Copyright Act, between consumers' rights to access copyright material, hence fair dealing, and uh, creatives' rights or copyright owners' rights, because more broadly, because copyright owners aren't always creatives. You are when you create it, and if you're not, but if you're a publisher or a record label, for example, you've acquired copyright in the sound recording and the music publishing, respectively. So you are an owner, and
Mm.
you want to protect your rights too. You may not have created it, but you acquired copyright, usually through what's called an assignment of copyright. So there we are. It's a very interesting world, fast-paced, moving area, really critical for society and particularly the music industry and the creatives. You know, everything, book publishing, films, artwork, music, everything. Everything's being
Mm.
affected by this. How could it not when some, an algorithm can so quickly create something that competes with you in the marketplace? And as I was mentioning earlier, when we spoke yesterday,
Mhm.
they're estimating by about end of 2026, half of what could be on these services could be AI produced. Whoa, okay. As if it wasn't hard enough already to make a living in the arts, you're now
Mhm.
competing with machine learned product, which some people may not care. They may not.
Nice.
And I think it will be harder and harder to detect. Right now, it's still somewhat obvious, especially if you have a trained ear, that it's not human. But as it continues to learn and get better doing this, it'll be harder and harder to discern. And I still think there's a percentage of the public, not to be judgmental at all, that doesn't care. And if they like it,
Right.
they like it. So I don't care. It's AI. I don't care at all.
Mm.
I just like it and I want it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have it. And there's nothing illegal about that, unless, of course, it was an infringement of someone's rights.
Right.
So um, early days, uncertain. There is one thing that you had mentioned before, Cheryl, that I think is important.
Mhm.
Um, to what extent can you acquire copyright protection in an AI created work? Again, no
Mhm.
guidance in Canada, some guidance through the US Copyright Office, which we may or may not adopt here. Remember, we're sovereign states. So far, we're not the 51st state. We're not under their Copyright Act. The courts here are independent. Canada, Canadian courts will make their own decisions that won't necessarily be or follow US. But my guess is, and it's a guess, right? or an estimate, that the US Copyright Office's assessment that you have to have some significant human element to it or it is not copyright protected will likely be adopted here, but it's too soon to know, and that's just an estimate. Um, Now, to what extent you need to do that, don't know. And there have
Right.
been works in the Copyright Office in the U.S. that have been done by AI. Some have been rejected if they're solely AI because there's no human input. But some that were seriously directed, and the word is prompted, right? You prompted the
Mhm.
AI to do it, often in a meticulous kind of art, artistic way. right? As artists do, because a lot of art is incredible detail. It looks like this work behind me. Who knows how
Mm-hmm.
many drafts or how many sketches were done before that, and some works are
Mm-hmm.
even more like works of sculpture, or highly technical and almost scientific before they actually are put together and built.
Mm-hmm.
So, to what extent you need to control that? I would assume it would have to be significant, so that without your prompts, it couldn't exist, and it was a significant part of shaping that work. So those have been that so far. There have been some registrations in the U.S. That with AI, but it's almost like you'd want a weigh scale, like how much. Well, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's like asking, how much of a work can you take with copyright infringement? Well, it's never that clear. And there's where I think the law gets, it's hard because it becomes the so-called gray, right? Is it black or white? No, it's somewhere in the middle. And in that case, it's a qualitative and a quantitative test. Qualitative mean, what did you take? What's the value? Did you take the hook line of a song? Yeah, well then you probably infringed. Could be only 2 bars.
Mm-hmm.
Quantitatively, out of a 32-bar pop song, if you took 30 bars, well that's probably, but what if it
Copyright.
was only 16? And what if what you
Mm-hmm.
took was generic, not copyright protectable at all? You can't protect a scale. You can't
Mm-hmm.
collect the C major scale. You can't protect a 251 chord progression or 1645.
Mm-hmm.
No, we need those as our building blocks as as composers. Without those, you
Of
can't create
course.
any music at all. So it's the combination of your skill, industry experience, and knowledge, and not substantially copying from another, that gives you the originality. By the way, it's
Yes.
not like we all have to be Miles Davis and unique. No,
Mm-hmm.
thank goodness, or no one would gain copyright. It just has to be make that test and not substantially copy from another. So the substantial copy is qualitative or quantitative, and you analyze, and that happens all the time, over and over and over
Yeah.
again. All those high-profile copyright cases
Mm-hmm.
um, will look at those very issues. And
Do you,
in addition to, did you have access to a work? Was that the reason why you copied? And by the way, was it substantial? Those three things. Sounds simple, always
mm-hmm.
simple, but never easy to to
No.
make those
Mm-hmm.
analysis. That's why we have courts, and in the U.S. they actually have juries as well. Here, our copyright infringements are judge made law
Mm-hmm.
without a jury. So again, different systems, right?
Of
So I've been
course.
rambling. If there's some questions you need, I ramble a lot.
well, well, based
Yeah.
on based based on some of the
Are
things
we
that
up
you
in time
shared.
already? Or I'm not. You know what, Cheryl? I don't take the money and run. So if you want to continue on and ask me some more specific questions,
Sure. Okay. Okay.
go
Well,
ahead.
from from all that you have shared, there's a few things that came to my mind. I was going to ask you about
Sure.
copyright, and you already answered that. But the next thing was, do you foresee that there will come a time where people will be expected to supply a percentage of work that was NI as opposed to AI? Do you think there's
Yeah,
going to come when
yeah,
they're going to be
yeah. I was
required to
alluding.
say that?
Yeah, I was
Mhm.
alluding to that earlier. And so one thing I
Yes.
would highly recommend, and even recommend it now, even if you're not using AI, document your work.
Mhm.
If you got collaborators, great. That's oral testimony. Should you ever be challenged, keep your
Yes.
work in progress and date it. So that with the
Mhm.
same thing with AI, document everything you did to see if you can tip the scales so that it is your
Mhm.
work with AI
Mhm.
assisted. And I think we'll see more and more work with AI assistance. As it was mentioned to you before, I think some of the great producers as I was mentioning at a panel at the Juno Awards this year, boy, one just said, I just see it as a tool. and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a collaborator. And I read an interview just past week too with Timbaland saying the same thing. I hope that's the
Mm-hmm.
case. I hope it this doesn't run rampant and take over. I hope it is always directed by NI. And by the way, you mentioned something in one of your questions here, which I wanted to
Yeah.
point out. Registering a song with a collective like SOCAN, Simare constitute a form of copywriting. No, it doesn't, but it does constitute a form of evidence that you're claiming copyright in it. So it's a really good thing to do. And why
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you want to register with SOCAN? Because without that, you won't get your public performance rights royalties when the song is performed in public, for example. So yeah, very good habit. But you don't. Again, there are no formalities to acquire copyright. So if it's either original from the point of creation or it isn't, and if it's an
Mm-hmm.
original work, um, there's no formality required. It just exists. It is copyright protected. Everything else we've been talking about here on that level is to figure out how do I prove it's mine, and
Mm-hmm.
if I'm ever challenged, what would be good evidence in court to to prove copyright ownership. And those are all
Perfect.
good best practices. One other thing I could mention, which I don't usually because it is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You can swear what's called an affidavit, either with a lawyer.
Okay.
All lawyers are commissioner for oaths,
Mm-hmm.
OATHS.
Mm-hmm.
An affidavit is the equivalent of walking into the court, putting your hand on the Bible, and swearing you're telling the truth. That
Mm-hmm.
can be done in a lawyer's office, and an affidavit or a notary public, doesn't have to be a lawyer, or someone that has a commission stamp. I used to have one, for example, when I was an articling student, because we did a lot of litigation work, and sworn statements to preserve evidence were done all the time because it can take years to get to court. And if
Mm-hmm.
you've got the statement sworn, it's admissible in court. And people come and go, they move, you can't find the witnesses anymore, and some of them pass away. But you've got their
Mm-hmm.
preserved statement right there, which is really valuable. So, can you do that? Yeah, I don't really recommend it because it's expensive and you don't need to do
Mm-hmm.
it. You can
Right.
count on like two fingers that I've done it over the years. One client, which I cannot name, but they were anticipating there might be a lawsuit. I said, great. Well, let's preserve the evidence now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll keep it in my office. And
Mm-hmm.
should litigation ever arise, a lawsuit, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll fortunately it was never had to be used. And I recently returned the affidavit, the original, back to the client. I went, great. You didn't need it, but it was there just in case. So you can do that too. But and let me just peruse your questions too, Cheryl, just because.
Sure.
Yeah, how is AI changing? Well, yeah, we talked a lot about that. It is, and it will continue
Mm-hmm.
to be. I mean, it'll continue to be on, the streaming services, even to the point
Mm-hmm.
where AI artists are being signed to record deals.
Yes,
Surprisingly,
we're seeing that now.
who owns the AI? Well, hopefully the AI created work. Hopefully with enough NI, human input, you will.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But we don't have any guidance yet from the Canadian uh, in Canada,
Legal
and
framework.
only some guidance that might be inferred. But not
Mm-hmm.
remember, it's the U.S. is sovereign, Canada is sovereign, independent. Do not assume what happens in the U.S. will happen here.
Correct.
We can look at those for a precedent and for guidance, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not binding on us at all. So
Mm-hmm.
will it? I think it might. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a reasonable assumption, but it's just an assumption. Um, yeah, how should they handle the songwriting credits? That's a good issue. I think you would do it as you would with any other song, but acknowledge that it was created with the assistance of AI. So
Right.
you can only really claim copyright in the original part of it. The AI part of
Mm-hmm.
it is not copyright protectable. But why would
Okay.
you make the splits any different? Make it of the percentage of the copyright protected site. So,
Hmm.
still treat it as 100% of what is copyright protected and do the splits.
Yes.
That's what I would do.
Okay.
Um, well, there's a lot of risk of copyright infringement. Um, we live in that world right now. Well, we've been living in the internet world for over a generation anyway, and piracy on the internet has been rampant and easy to do. I mean, we call you will be well aware of the BitTorrent being able to. Oh, I shouldn't say this. No, I won't do that. But you could, if you
Okay.
wanted to. Here, I'm going to do it hypothetically. No
Mm.
one would have ever done this, of course. If you wanted all 230 Beatles songs, just use BitTorrent and just there you go. It's
Oh,
on your computer. Is that
I hear
legal?
you.
No. Could you do it?
Mm.
Yes. Is this
Mm.
before the onslaught of the current AI? Yes.
Mm.
So it was always there. And the
Right.
good, so let me put some good news on this too. Technology creates problems. It also creates solutions. There will be solutions, and there are ways to track what was done with AI and
Mm-hmm.
even sampling. Right? If you think you're
Hmm.
going to get away with a sample, good luck. There's technology that can sniff out even the most, adeptly buried sample. Uh, so when in doubt, clear it. The same thing's going
Mm.
to happen with AI. And I think we will
Interesting.
tend more and more to licensing because it's a faster route than legislation
Hmm.
or lawsuits, and it's more certain. And do we really want to disincentivize creatives not to create? Well, if you're not rewarding someone, they're not going to do it. That's what copyright's about, right? The ability to monetize your work and be
Yes.
rewarded from that. It goes back way back to the philosophy of believe it or not, historically, of the Statute of Anne, which is the first Copyright Act. It was based on English philosophy. John Locke, which they adopted, which we are is also historically embodied in our Copyright Act, that a
Yes.
person should be rewarded for the labors of their work. Well,
Yes.
that's what copyright's about. That's what our
Hmm.
sentiment is. There are others out there too, but
Yes.
that's the one that we follow generally in
Hmm.
our Copyright Act. Yeah, you should be rewarded. It's the monetization, the economic copyrights that you acquire when you create. That's the incentive to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah, um, can AI legally imitate an artist's voice? Well, we no, they can't. It goes back to the laws, not copyright now, but the laws of
Hmm.
personality, or what they call the misappropriation of personality. If someone takes your voice, that's actionable. They have to get
Hmm.
permission, and if they're exploiting it for commercial gain, that's an infringement. It's what's called a tort, TORT, with no e on the end, right? Um,
Hmm.
it's not a copyright infringement; it's an infringement of your personality rights. So no, they can't do that, and that should be licensed. Um,
Hmm. When you say license, do you mean like a business license for
well,
artists
a
that they to
license,
license their voice?
yeah, good question. A license is really just another term for a contract. And a
Hmm.
license, it gives you permission to do something that, in the absence of that, it would be infringing someone's right. So there are two common contracts when you talk about intellectual property. One is the ownership transfer, which is an assignment,
Hmm.
right? Either for a duration of time or the entire length of the intellectual property rights, whether it be copyright or trademark or patent, whatever. And license is the a contract to use certain rights in relation to that IP. Typically, we think of copyright licenses. For example, if you're performing music in public, you need a license from SOCAN to perform that music. That's really what
Right.
it is. So it's a permission, and an assignment is basically um, an ownership transfer, and they're contracts. and contract law
Mm-hmm.
applies. So those are the terms that
Mm-hmm.
we talk about here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you asked, should contracts and licensing agreements start including clauses about AI? Absolutely. Yes, if you want them to not do it or do it positively
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully get paid for that, yes, you can.
Yes.
Yeah, and that we've been starting to see that creep into record deals and stuff like that, and licensing too. Yes. What advice do you have for independent artists who want to experiment with AI while staying legally protected? Well, I think everything we've been talking about today is probably a good start.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, more and more producers, artists, songwriters are going to be using it. I think the key thing there is document what you've done and try and err on the side of NI input to actually own the copyright protected work. Because, like I said, the more you allow AI to do it, if I just mumble a few words into chat GTP and they spit out a copyright work, it's not original. It's not going to work.
Right.
That is not
Right.
going to fit the legal test of originality, which means um, a certain degree of industry experience or knowledge. There's no knowledge. AI did it all. So there's an
Right.
example. The closer you get to more collaborative work with AI, the more original you will be, and the more likely you will have a copyright protectable work, which is valuable. And
Yes.
we're going to see more and more in that. And by the way, it isn't all bad. I mean, some of those AI artworks that I've seen are just stunning. They really are. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
wow. But it often is enhanced by NI with a
Mm-hmm.
real artist that's going, hey, this is what I want. Can you fine tune this? And it's kind of like a fine artist. If you ever seen a
Mm-hmm.
painting, you go, wow, look at the detail there. Wow.
Yes.
That makes the difference between mediocre work and masterful. That's what we're
Mm-hmm.
looking at, I think. Um,
Yeah.
no, when the law is not going to catch up quickly, especially with litigation and
Mm-hmm.
legislation. But licensing,
Yeah.
yes. Um,
Yes. Okay.
and the one thing I want to mention, we do have, believe it or not, ever since the new government, we do have an AI uh, commissioner that's how serious the government's taking it. So the whole world is treating this very seriously. I think his name is Evan Solomon, and he's in charge of introducing ANI policy and presumably eventually legislation. We did
Mm-hmm.
have an AI, a digital act that, like I said, fell
Mm-hmm.
by the wayside when the
Government change.
the government had to go into an election, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we do have an AI department, so I think that's encouraging. Hopefully,
Yeah.
again, Canada tends to play catch up, but the good news is there's a lot of intelligent people here, well
Mm-hmm.
trained, well educated, and if we can use world models to adapt here in Canada and try and avoid some of the mistakes and do
Yes.
the best model that we can, that's kind of what happened with our Copyright Modernization Act. Yeah, it took 12 years, but it was a fairly, I think, even-handed distillation of digital law copyright, bring us into the digital era, which we weren't in. The U.S. went into it really quickly. In 1998, they had the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which implemented the Treaty on digital uh, copyright modernization. So they got in real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But are there issues with it? Yeah, there are. And I think, yeah, I guess I'm being biased there, but I think that's the advantage anyway. Not moving too quick and looking at other worldwide models.
Yeah.
Um,
Picking what works for us, kind of idea.
well, that's interesting. Finally, what practical steps can Christian and gospel artists take to use AI responsibly? Well, I think everything I've said. I don't think it's
Hmm.
any different than any other field. You deal ethically, you deal honestly, you disclose what you've done, you document your work. There's a saying I want to share with you. I'm a big fan of reading biographies and autobiographies, and I was reading a biography of um, the his name is Roberto Gazzetta, who was a
Okay.
Cuban immigrant that came to Miami and then worked his way up. He had already been an employee at Coca-Cola. So by the time he got to, and he was an engineer, chemical engineer. So you can see
Hmm.
the tie-in there with Coca-Cola. He ended up becoming eventually moving through the ranks and becoming the chairman of Coca-Cola, being a former Cuban immigrant and refugee when Fidel Castro took power.
Hmm.
He was at the helm when I think he was the one that um, invented Diet Coke, which is
Okay.
still one of the
Yes.
big sellers. And the
Yes.
profit of Coca-Cola went, it's just
Through the roof.
insane.
Yes.
3,500%. Unheard of.
Wow.
Increase
Hmm.
3,500% in profits when he was the chair. He's since deceased. But at the end of the book, it says he leaves a little saying that I want to share with you. Uh, Integrity is the ultimate business edge.
I love that.
I do too,
I
and
love
it
that.
stuck in my brain. And
Hmm.
went, and that was part of his eulogy when he passed away,
Hmm.
which is a few years ago. But I went, yeah, that's the way to go. Because if you
Hmm.
always say what you say you're going to do, when you say you're going to do it, you build up
Yes.
trust, and that's integrity.
That's it. That's
And
it.
you can trade on that, right?
Hmm.
In ways, yeah, like so when someone deals with you, they know they're getting the straight goods. Because this industry, as you're well aware, is full of a lot of hype,
Yes.
shucksterism, jivism,
Hmm.
fast money. That
Yeah.
hasn't changed. I'll make you a star, kid, right? I'm the big
Yeah.
fat manager. Yeah,
Yeah.
come and sign with me. That hasn't changed. So yeah, if you work with integrity, I think, and ethically and hard work, that's I'll leave you with this, unless there's something else in your questions here that I missed. Um, I think we've covered most of it.
I think we
Um,
have. I know one of the questions I was going to have, I know we've kind of been talking on the side of the kind of the creative side, the
yes,
creative,
yes.
the kind of the music maker people. What about behind the scenes, producers and people that are supporting the work of the creatives? What legal ramifications or what legal things do they need to keep in mind now in relation to AI or the use of AI, even if they're on the production side? Is it the same as with the
Yeah, I
songwriters and
think it
creatives?
is, except that the skill set that they're using
Hmm.
is not. Well, that's not quite true, because if you're a producer, for example, of music, you're often co-writing with the artist. So the same
Okay.
legal issues as to who owns the copyright when you're using AI to create a song are going to be there. Same thing with the recording, right?
Hmm.
And I mean, recording these days is incredible. I mean, we've been in the world of Pro Tools where you can literally, I mean, you literally don't even have to be able to sing anymore. You can take that and alter it, and
Hmm.
that's just the world we live in, right?
Right.
But I think again, I think you need to be disclose what you're doing,
Hmm.
and don't mislead someone if you did use AI and say you didn't. That's just wrong. I think people
Right.
want to know. They don't want to be tricked, and if they do, let's put it this way: if as an artist, you're going to lose all credibility in your image in the marketplace. Um, you know, like for example, the example I was giving with that poet who's an AI artist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they made no bones about it. Yeah, that's what I do. Okay, well then that's fine. Now I know what I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
or I'm not getting, and if I like
Right.
it, I'm still going to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
But you told me what you're doing. Don't try and hide that you know that you didn't use Pro Tools to auto tune my voice.
Right, right,
For
right.
example,
Yeah.
same thing here. Don't tell me that you didn't use AI to make the song better or help write it in the
Yeah.
first place or whatever you might do in terms of the sound recording side of it. And again, you're going to see more and more of these collaborations. And why would you not? Because it does make your life easier.
Yes.
Same thing in law too. I mean, drafting contracts and analyzing contracts, doing research. Is it there already to use? Yes, it is. You want to be careful though,
Mm-hmm.
because and this has come up where lawyers in particular have gotten disciplined where they relied on it so heavily. Yeah, believe it or not, and didn't check their sources. There's what they call hallucinations, which again I object to that phrase because that's a
Mm-hmm.
human term. It's
Right.
not a hallucination. The AI did what it should have done, and it gave you the
Mm-hmm.
wrong data.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, believe it or not, lawyers presenting court briefs to a court use AI, and AI made up the cases.
Yeah. Oh,
What?
wow. Mhm.
Huh?
Wow.
And then you put that in front of a judge. What do you think a judge is going to
Yeah.
do to a lawyer? They're going to more than wrap your
Definitely.
knuckles. You're going to be in contempt of
Yeah.
court, and you may be,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
suspended,
Lose your
maybe even
license. Hmm.
disbarred. You can't mislead
Hmm.
a court, and you just did.
That's,
You didn't intend to, but you didn't check
hmm.
your sources. So your
Wow.
AI hallucinated. So what? You're responsible for
Hmm.
that,
Wow.
and that has already happened because it's easy, right? Well, hey, we
Hmm.
can make my workload easier, but you have to check it. Same thing here with the
Yes.
producing. I think you have to make sure that it's been the case for a long time with samples too, right?
Hmm.
Don't assume that you can get away with sampling something when you really can't. You really should have cleared it. And by the way, that can take months to do
Yeah.
properly.
Hmm.
It can be expensive, and
Yeah.
in some cases, there's a no sample list. True
Yeah.
story. Nicki Minaj got sued by Tracy Chapman. Uh,
Oh.
she used it in one of her recordings, and Tracy's on a no sample list. No, you can't take my work and use it that way. And so
Wow.
she lost, and she ended up having to pay Tracy Chapman a damages in tune of about 350,000 US dollars. So don't
Wow.
do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. No.
Now that's a those are high profile artists with very high profile copyrights. Still,
Mm.
you think Led Zeppelin's gonna be happy when you take Stairway to Heaven? Their lawyers will be all over you.
My
Same
goodness.
thing here, right? So, um, yeah.
Mm.
Um,
Wow. This is
anyway,
Well,
so
this has been very, very informative right from the get-go. One of the things that I've heard about AI, and I think I agree with you with your NI versus AI mentality. What I have heard, even with the advancements of AI, even with it being a learning, I want to say learning software, but a learning entity, it can never be human. And therefore it can
oh
never have the
yes,
emotion. It can
yes,
never
yes, yes,
have the
yes.
that sentiment that would come from human experience. So even when the use of AI, it's still mechanical. It's still just adopting information from the sources it has all over the
Yes,
web.
yes, yes.
But artists are usually encouraged to say, don't rely on AI because that's not you. That's not your emotion. That's not you can your experiences in music is what comes forth, and AI can't pick that up,
I agree, and
right?
I've often heard it said that AI is an example of what music sounds like, or art for that matter, that's
Mm-hmm.
soulless.
Mm.
I think that's true right now, but as it continues to evolve, it will get
Mm-hmm.
harder and harder. And again, some people will not be able to hear it.
Yeah.
So yes, I take some heart in that, and yes, I believe that the human, again, we should be served by the machines. We shouldn't be
Serving the
working for the
machines.
machines. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. And remember, again, it's what I said earlier in this talk. It doesn't innovate.
That's right.
Humans
Props.
do, and I does. So that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be no. It may help you to innovate
Mm-hmm.
as a collaborator in the future,
Yeah.
which is good.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, there's lots of good things that it does do, and will continue to do. And do we really want to turn the clock back, or try and put the lid back on Pandora's box? No, we don't, and we're not going to, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to happen anyway. So we live with
Right.
it, and yeah, I think you want to preserve as much of that human element as possible, and uh, leave the mistakes in because they're interesting, because they're human, and
Yeah.
the well, who knows? Maybe AI will learn how to do human mistakes too. I don't know.
Yeah.
uh,
Well, people have science
yeah.
fiction has already tried to expand on this, where they think AI is going to go. And yeah, they start going with the AI becomes sentient and all the rest, but I think right now, where we're at right now, is that humans are still humans, and humans are the only ones that really can express any of their emotions authentically. And I think that's also very key. Is even today, I think authenticity is very important when it comes to the songwriting and producing.
Oh
So I
yes,
totally
yeah,
agree
yeah,
with you. I totally
yeah.
agree with you about the NI.
And I think you can see that in the artists that are most successful.
Mm,
They're really relating directly, authentically, with integrity to
yes,
the artist and to the audience
yes,
that wants to hear what they're saying. And
exactly.
they don't want to be tricked. And the last thing they want is to find that you're just a phony and a fake. In fact,
Yeah,
in the world we live in, they want even more. Give me the real thing. Tell it to me
yeah,
straight. There's so much fake
yeah,
news and you know uh,
that's true.
inauthentic um, uh, information and results
Mm,
and technology. We're
yeah,
inundated with that. Yeah,
yeah,
so we do crave, I think, community and contributions and real role models that actually are
hmm,
have integrity. But
yes,
it's again, there's a segment of the public that goes, well, I don't really care. Give me that fake DJ for my radio, if I even listen to radio anymore, and that's okay, or the newscaster or whatever. But there's going to
hmm,
be room for both. I just
yes,
I think if you do, you carve your own way and try and create something that's distinct and unique. And like I said, I don't think the sky's falling, but is things changing? Yeah, they always do, and they always will. Just one
yeah,
more. It happens to be a little more seismic than others that we've had.
um,
It's
yeah.
true.
So I love what you've been sharing. It's been a lot, and I know that anyone who's watching, if you have any questions about anything that Paul has shared, please go and feel free to visit ALAS. Alas,
Hmm.
that is the artist. I remember that one again. The artist legal advice services,
Services.
correct?
Yes.
Services.
Right. Yes.
Um, this is a nonprofit. It's a pro bono way of getting legal advice about your music, about copyrights, about even contracts related to your producers and so forth. Feel free to go there. Um, also, Paul is one of the advisors there, so he'd be happy to help you with those questions. And if you're interested in learning more, as Paul said earlier, he has written so many different articles that will help, two in particular related to AI and how it is advancing in the music and arts scene. Definitely feel free to go to these articles on Paul and SandersonLaw.ca. There are articles there, also on ALAS. Is that correct? On ALAS.
Yes, yes. Alas
Ontario.com.
website, yeah, has articles that you can access for free that are valuable. Yeah.
Yes. So
Hmm.
definitely go and check that out. Paul, thank you so much for coming back and updating us on how things are going in the legal world and AI, and how we can move forward, how we can be in a way a step ahead. In some ways, being a step ahead is doing exactly what we would have done before AI, which is remain authentic, be integral, do our copyright, which is add copyrights, saying that we're claiming that copyright, register our music, which is another evidence of owning the music, or owning copyright. Is that right? Claiming copyright. Just doing what we've done in order to protect ourselves. Is that kind of a good summary of what you've basically shared
Yeah,
with us?
sure. Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. And
yeah.
work with good people.
And work with
Yeah.
good people. I like
And
it.
get it in writing. Even
And there
better,
you
get it
go.
in writing. Yes, a good,
Absolutely. Well, Paul,
yeah, a good contract makes a good. It's kind of like good fences, good neighbors, good contract, good
yeah,
business relationship. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Paul, so much for
Hey,
being
well,
here.
thank you,
We're so
Cheryl, for
honored.
asking me. It's been a pleasure, and hope this is of some value.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Paul Sanderson, for joining us. It was so wonderful to have you share all of this information to help us understand a little bit more about how AI is affecting us and how we can be kind of ahead in the legal system, what we need to do to stay integral and to stay on the positive side of the legal side regarding AI and the music scene. And I want to thank you, viewers who are watching. If you stuck through this conversation, you would have heard so much information. I would suggest to you, if you would like to, you can always go back and revisit this episode, or you could go visit Paul Sanderson's website, which is sandersonlaw.ca. And there you will find out more about Paul Sanderson and his team, as well as you would find some articles that he has written. He writes articles on a regular basis just to keep everyone abreast of what's new in the legal scene with regards to arts and entertainment, and also to help us navigate the legal side of our arts and entertainment as well. He also has a wonderful nonprofit service that he offers, which is called ALAS. It's alasontario.ca, and ALAS stands for Artist Legal Advice Services. He has a series of, or a team of 10 lawyers that offer legal advice on a pro bono basis. What that simply means is this: as an artist or a producer, you have the opportunity to go to alasontario.ca to get legal advice about any situation that you're concerned about at no charge to you. This is a service that I know Paul is proud to provide, and we want you to take advantage of it. So again, that is alasontario.ca, as well as Paul Anderson, or sorry, sandersonlaw.ca. Those are the two references. We'll put those in the description as well. Again, I want to thank you for being a part of this episode. We hope that we will see you next time on GMI Hub Online.